My professional life to my volunteer life, which is steadily growing and changing as I've come into my own here in this community and found my way. I'm a court-appointed special advocate for the city of Virginia Beach. I have a great family right now that I'm working with 3 beautiful children. And I'm also a member of the Association of Fundraising Professionals, which is what my profession looks to help educate others about what we do in our community, rather than just ringing on doorbells and getting money. We really want to better the world around us. So without further ado, I think they selected me as Rotarian of the Week today because of the background of our particular speaker. So when I start his introductions, you may understand this. Reminder, I'm a Georgia Tech grad and from Kentucky originally. Mr. Stewart grew up in Wilmington, Delaware. He covered his bases by getting his degrees from Duke, Bachelor of Arts, and the University of North Carolina, a Master's in Library Science. Okay, got through that. And served 1 tour of duty with the U.S. Navy in Brunswick, Maine as a patrol plane tactical coordinator with VP-21 and VP-10. He initially settled in Virginia Beach as he began what turned out to be a 32-year career with the Virginia Beach Public Library. For the majority of that time, he served as the manager of his public services. He and his wife Martha moved to Norfolk in 1993. They live in Colonial Place neighborhood. John retired from librarianship in 2006. And in 2007, he was inspired by a wetland education seminar he attended. He formed the Lafayette Wetlands Partnership. The partnership is a citizen-based initiative that shares its experience and knowledge with others who want to restore urban wetlands along the Lafayette River. Since its inception, the partnership has led 8 separate restoration projects that have restored over 9,000 square feet of vegetated wetlands along the Lafayette.
Wow.
Welcome, Mr. Stewart.
Thank you. Well, first of all, my congratulations to Stacy for getting through the introduction.
Thank you.
I know it's difficult. I've actually learned from several other people here that it was equally difficult for them to have a Duke graduate come in here. But I was really thrilled. I most appreciate Bill Giermach's invitation to be here today. And when I came in, I thought maybe Dick Gresham would be the one person I knew, and lo and behold, I know several people here. I've had some wonderful conversations. It's been a very nice morning and nice breakfast, and I thank you for that. I left a few things at the table. One is a little blurb about the Lafayette Wetlands Partnership. It just speaks to our values. I think you'll find that our values are not unlike the values that I see on the banner on the wall. I've also put, just for the fun of it, a little brochure here about floating wetlands. I'll talk about them very, very briefly, but it's a new project that we have started, and I also left a business card if anyone would like to get in touch with me with questions afterwards. I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you today about the Lafayette Wetlands Partnership. We're a citizen-based initiative dedicated to neighborhood preservation of wetlands along the Lafayette River in Norfolk. We do our work by mentoring local leagues, civic leagues, churches, schools, and other groups who want to restore or preserve living shorelines along the river. I think I'd like to tell you a little bit about how we got our start. I'd like to tell you about our business model. I'd like to talk about just a couple of the projects, not too many. And I want to finish with 2 overarching things that I think the partnership as a citizen-based organization produces as it does its work, probably as important to me as the projects themselves. The Lafayette Wetlands Partnership had its genesis in 2007, and I can recall the moment very clearly. It was a small group of people standing by a little wetland in Norfolk. It was badly eroded, it had lots and lots of concrete in it, and it was just really a mess. And we began to ask ourselves, what could we do to restore the original beauty of the wetland and the original functionality of this wetland? We had absolutely no experience. We simply ran on enthusiasm. Over the course of several meetings, however, something really marvelous happened. That group made a commitment that really is the reason that I'm standing here in front of you today. We said, let's do something more than just repair a wetland. We said there are probably many, many ways that we could share what we're learning here. So we made a decision, first of all, to document our experience in whatever transpired to preserve that wetland. We wanted to document the experience so we could share with others who might want to do the same thing in their neighborhood, behind their school, or on property near their church or place of business. And then we went beyond that. And we said, let's not only share it, but let's make sure that everyone knows that, in a phrase we've come to use, that no one stands alone. That if you have a dream, we can help you make it happen. If you want to set a course, we'll stand by the helm and help you steer your ship. I think, though, before going any further about the partnership, I probably should establish why we trouble ourselves with wetlands to begin with. And I don't know how many people here live near wetlands or have seen them in your drive back and forth to work, or even have worked in wetlands. But they really are the line between land and water. And in that location serve a very important function in terms of our water quality. One of the important things about wetlands is that they filter nutrients, and they filter out bacteria that's coming as part of stormwater runoff from lawns, from streets, from wherever that would go directly into the wetland or into the water. The wetland filters out those pollutants. It also filters out sediment. That is the same sort of stuff that's coming off the streets. It slows it, it stops it, it drops it in the grass rather than letting it go into the water. It prevents erosion. These grasses that you see in the wetlands, they have a tremendously thick set of rhizomes under the surface of the mud that actually holds that soil in place and prevents sedimentation from getting into the water. They provide extremely important habitat for young fish, young birds, and young marine animals. And finally, something that I think is often overlooked, but that we make a habit of reminding ourselves of, is that wetlands really add to the beauty of the neighborhood, particularly in urban and suburban settings. And we actually have found research that documents that they not only add beauty, they add value to these communities. Anyway, that's the why. Those are the kind of the whys of why we stuck with wetlands. Our business model is really fairly simple. It has a number of attributes. First of all, the partnership is not so much an entity as it is a living and evolving collaboration, kind of a living network of individuals and organizations that include government scientists, engineers, students and faculty from Old Dominion, representative of established environmental groups like the Elizabeth River Project and the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, members of civic leagues, private citizens, and business people. We have no officers. We have no bylaws. We are not incorporated with the state of Virginia. And yet, we plan, we fund, we permit, and we conduct all of our projects independently. And the key to our business plan is that we always consult with scientists to make sure that our projects are reliably designed and will last after we're finished. There's an old cliche that says, like, give a man to fish and you feed him for a day, teach a person to fish and you set them up for their lifetime. Well, we don't fish. We mentor. And we teach people to fish, and we expect them to help others after their project is finished. And that's what we call neighborhood stewardship of wetlands. As you can imagine, a citizen-based initiative like ours really only tackles small projects. But each one is a pearl in what is becoming a string of pearls around the Lafayette River. And pearls that have been gathered by many people who have participated in each of these individual projects. And those people collectively now are creating what we call a community of concern around the river. And it's that community of concern that we want to keep building, which assures the long-term stewardship of the Lafayette. I speak of the Lafayette, I could be speaking of the Lynnhaven just as easily, or any other river that is in Hampton Roads. We happen to have found that as our location. I want to tell you about just very, very briefly about three projects that we did. First of all, it was nice that Stacy started us off at Old Dominion because some of our projects are sandwiched in between a creek called Niggy Mill Creek and Old Dominion University. We're on most of the projects that I'm going to be describing, for instance, are along Colley Avenue, north of O'Sullivan's, south of the Hampton Bridge, on both sides of Colley Avenue. But one project that I wanted to tell you about was the Highland Park Civic League back in 2010. Highland Park is an unusual neighborhood. They're right next to Old Dominion. Only 1/3 of the homes are owner-occupied. 2/3 are student housing. It's a community that really struggles to hold itself together. They had a rezoning issue. A developer wanted to put in some apartments there, and they opposed the increased density in their neighborhood. And they prevailed with City Council in opposing that development. But they didn't stop there. The property was located right along the wetland in what we call Colley Bay, which goes back to Old Dominion. And they said, rather than simply winning, as some people were congratulating them on, let's do something here to add to this particular piece of property. And they came to us and said, we would like to restore some portion of this wetland. And we worked with them, and they completed a restoration from a wetland that had trees toppling into the water, had no vegetation, very little grass, and they converted that into 1,500 square feet of what today is a very vibrant wetland. And more importantly, I mean, what really was interesting is that citizen-based initiative, which they accomplished, that became a catalyst for other people to pay attention in Colley Bay. Old Dominion was already investing in Colley Bay. But the city of Norfolk now has done 2 projects to complement the Citizens Project, 2 much larger projects. And between the work of the citizens, the work at Norfolk, and the work of Old Dominion, this little bay, little Colley Bay, which is just off of Granby Street, off of Colley Avenue, I should say, at the Colley Bridge, is a little gem along the Lafayette River. And the citizens played a very important part in getting that started. Now, motivation for these projects is mixed. There are a lot of different reasons for doing wetland restorations. We work with a group called Caring for Creation. They're associated with the Episcopal Diocese in Southern Virginia. And their motivation was spiritual. Their motivation was the desire to care for a created world. And we work with them near Talbot Hall, which has been in the news recently. We work with them in restoring about 1,000 square feet of wetland grass along the Lafayette. And finally, an example of a project, an individual. This was in Riverview, and these are maybe, I don't know how many people are familiar with Norfolk or from Norfolk, but I apologize if I'm using names that are not familiar to you. But Riverview is a neighborhood, again, on the north side, north and west of Norfolk, near the Granby Street Bridge. And an individual, his name was Jeremy Jones, and he and his family, wife, 3 children, they walked by a particular wetland in his neighborhood every evening, or every weekend. And they saw every day for years. They saw mud, they saw big chunks of concrete, and they saw huge stands of something called Phragmites, which is an invasive grass that crowds out native vegetation. And one day Jeremy called us and he said, I've had it, I want to do something about this wetland. If you're willing to help me, I'll do it. And Jeremy stuck with that project for 2 years. We just completed the work in 2013. We raised $6,000 for Jeremy through grants. We helped him with his permitting. We helped him get grasses, other materials. We helped him with tools. We helped him plan work days. We worked in liaison with the city, and I'm really pleased to say that his initiative has resulted in 3,000 square feet of Phragmites being converted into a lovely upland garden, and about 2,000 square feet of wetland, vegetated wetland being created along the Lafayette. Anyway, those are 3 examples, and I could give you others, but I think they indicate the range of people that in some cases might have felt they stood alone but didn't have to. You may recall that the partnership got its start in Knitting Mill Creek. If I wasn't clear about it, that's where we all stood that day when we first had our epiphany about how we wanted to handle ourselves and wetlands. Knitting Mill Creek is a tributary of the Lafayette, and as I mentioned, it's just a little bit east of ODU. We've done a couple of projects. We had done over the years a couple of projects, one at 46th Street and one in which we collaborated with Dick and his church at 47th and Colley Avenue, where we included a rain garden along with the wetland restoration. So Knitting Mill Creek feels like home to us. And at the same time, it's a home that's in need of repair. We did a citizen-based water monitoring project there a few years ago and discovered that there's extremely high levels of E. coli and enterococci bacteria in that creek. And in addition, it's a source of algal blooms every year. They're being studied by the ODU phytoplankton lab and many other researchers. And the algal blooms suggest a lot of nutrient runoff comes into the creek. Recently, we said we'd like to tackle that. We want to fix the home if we can. And the first step that we took was to apply for a grant through the Environmental Protection Agency that would invite a contractor to come in and study ways to use green infrastructure to interdict the stormwater runoff that's going into the creek and begin to correct some of these problems of nutrient and biological runoff. And I'm very pleased to say that in May of this year, we received a $60,000 grant from the Environmental Protection Agency to begin that work. It was a citizen group that initiated the proposal, but we partnered with the city of Norfolk. Again, it's the idea that the citizens can bring a tremendous amount of energy, but we always need to partner with the scientists and engineers that really understand the problems. The contractor that we've employed had one public meeting so far and is responsible for proposing some site-specific solutions to stormwater runoff that also respect sea level rise and also respect the very high water table that exists in Norfolk. The study will just produce targets. It doesn't produce finished projects. But the targets will be specific enough that we can begin to seek funding. And once again, it's not, from our point of view, just going to the city and saying, okay, let's make some projects, but it's our responsibility then to also help find grants or to find ways that citizens themselves can step in and do some of the work. There's many, many more aspects to the partnership that I could describe to you, but I want to respect your time and I want to bring things to a conclusion. I'll just very briefly just skim over 3 other related sorts of projects. They relate to this community of concern that I spoke about. In 2012, we started a project called Eyes on the River. There's a way for citizens to use Twitter, Facebook, and for some of us a telephone to share what they see along the river and to funnel that into the ODU phytoplankton lab so that we can create both an increase in the understanding of science, but also give people an opportunity to feel like they're sharing in their observations with other people. They're not all, as I said, standing alone looking at the river, but there are many of us participating in the river and its health. The site has about 120 members that are very active. In fact, just recently someone sighted a gar. Does anyone fish here? I mean, a gar is a very long, unusual fish. Yeah. Anyway, we've had some unusual sightings, and people are having a lot of fun with Eyes on the River. Out of that came a thing called river posts. And if you're in Norfolk and you're driving and you see a little white post with an orange cap on the top, the idea is take your smartphone, put it on top of the post, take a picture, upload it to Eyes on the River, and what we're creating is a longitudinal picture of the evolution of different places of the river. So we're using citizens to create science and to create a better idea of how the river's changing. And finally, I put this little brochure about residential floating wetlands on your table. Wetlands take land to install, but we realized that there's a technology where you can actually build huge floats and put plants on them, and the roots dangle down like hydroponic gardening. The microbes attach to the roots, the microbes gobble up bacteria, and the roots take up nutrients. So it's a somewhat unproven but a new technology for cleaning up water. And so we're inviting, we have a little prototype that we've invited residents to put behind their homes, and we're hoping that they would be rather beautiful little additions to the backyard while not saving the river, adding to the community of concern. In any case, those are projects, and I don't want to end there. I mentioned earlier that I'd like to talk about 2 overarching outcomes that I think are very meaningful to me, and I think that the model of a group like the partnership produces. First of all, I think our work at its base is all about strengthening a sense of community. I think that using shared experiences along the river has proven, by our experience, to create a little deeper cohesion in the communities that involve themselves in this. And in fact, our experience has been it creates cohesion across communities. Our model suggests that if we help you, you will help another community. And once they've been helped, they'll help another community. And so we have a lot of connections that are being made across the city. I put in my notes, there's nothing like putting your hands in the mud with a bunch of strangers to build a bond across neighborhoods. But there is one more thing that I do feel is important. I think our model is really all about citizens. Government doesn't have to carry all the burden, and its citizens can take up some of that load. And I think our record suggests that citizens working together, sharing their expertise, relying upon the guidance of scientists, and importantly asking no more of one another than each is willing to give, citizens can indeed make a difference in the health of not only the Lafayette, but any river in Hampton Roads. So that's the Lafayette Wetlands Partnership. That's our story. We believe we have a model that works. We believe the model is replicable in other places. We're very proud of our accomplishments, and I'm particularly grateful to have been here today to share them with you. Thank you.
And we've got about 1 minute for our questions. Don't go away, John.
Yes.
I guess July the 1st, DEQ's wetlands regulations changed. Do you see any of that having a significant impact on the life and health of the river?
I'm not familiar with the DEQ regulations. I do know that in terms of total maximum daily load requirements, I know things are changing a lot. I'm not that familiar with them. So I would say that I would hope that they would have an effect on the health of the river. I think that's the outcome. The outcome, I think, of all of that is to study the river, to know the river, and to be better able to quantify what we're putting into the river. I would say yes. I mean, that would be my hope, although I'm not that familiar with them in detail.
I'm not either, I just know they're expensive.
They are expensive, yeah. They will cause expense, yeah. Yes, Dick?
Yeah, just quick comments more than anything else. You're an amazing guy in a lot of ways. There are certainly some folks in City Hall that I'd like to throw in the mud. That you've successfully gotten into the mud in a way that they've learned maybe the citizens' perspective.
Yeah.
And I think it's been extremely beneficial. And just the project that you and I, that I had some interface with you on, I think the rest of us would be interested to know that John Moser, who was a former member here, his wife was a big part of that. Through the Master Gardeners, they made a beautiful, beautiful rain garden that everybody should go see at the bottom of 47th Street.
So the rain garden absorbs the runoff from 47th Street, but it also saves Dick's Church from having to mow, and it saves the city from having to mow. So there's lots of multiple outcomes. And I would like to follow up on one thing Dick said, particularly with David standing here, and that is that we take great pride in developing strong relationships with colleagues in government. And we in fact we participate with David on a group called the Watershed Management Task Force, where I think we're exchanging a lot of good ideas together. And quite frankly, we wouldn't be as successful if we hadn't had the support of the scientists and engineers that work with the city.
One more little last comment was the Norfolk Rotary Club. Their main project is oyster beds in the Lafayette River.
Ah,
Wow.
wonderful.
All right. John, thank you. Coffee mug with our 4-way test, so you don't forget it. And I've got a little something that I want to give to you because I'd like you to come back and consider joining us every Friday.
Thank you very much. I very much enjoyed being with you all.
Good, good. And we have one more thing. Who's got it? Need you to draw our winning lottery ticket for the day.
Oh, wonderful. Last three. 714. 714.
4. Good. All right. Have a great week, folks.
Yeah, yeah.